how hard it is to stay fit and healthy. Everyone was under the impression that the food that was being offered was generally healthy. Is that it is about how did I lose 20 kilos and manage to keep it off throughout years? It was simple, but not easy. Let's talk about how I did it. Remember to hit like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm and it helps my channel grow. And if you find my videos useful, go ahead and share my channel or any of my videos with one of your friends. Maybe they'll find it useful as well. The way this started was at an office party where some pictures were taken. You can see the picture right here. And when I saw this picture, I didn't recognize myself in terms of the physical shape that I was in. This was the first time that I was honestly shocked about the way I looked in relation to the way I felt. I felt pretty good. I thought everything was going fine, but I knew what I looked like when I was a teenager in my early 20s, when I was very athletic and doing a lot of sports, a lot of judo. And I saw this picture and there was a complete mismatch. So I went to a gym that I walked by every day on my commute, and they did something very interesting. They actually didn't let me become a member immediately. There was a whole conversation and intake where it was supposed to be a mutual agreement that they would accept me as a member and I would accept them as my gym and trainer. And that required both a psychological commitment. Ooh, I want to belong to this group because it seems like they were getting a lot of good results and it was a very good personal training gym. But also a financial commitment. They were not cheap, but they were offering value for money. So as I started training there, I was very happy to be able to get in, and I started to get a lot of good advice and tips. It wasn't just about the exercise. They actually talked to me about my lifestyle, about life, about the flow of my week, about my nutrition, about sleeping patterns. And gradually over time, I came to understand that there were a lot of little habits and things that I thought I knew that I took for granted that were not based on anything but my own experience, my own assumption, and what I had learned from watching TV advertisements about health and fitness. And that set me on a journey that led me to where I am today. I actually went to the Health and Fitness Institute where the personal trainers that trained me there got most of their education and training last year. You can find the summary videos on my channel where I learned for myself all of the theory and scientific knowledge that was the foundation for them as functional trainers, trainers of functional fitness, and of lifestyle coaches, people who could talk to other people about lifestyle factors that are affecting their health and fitness. But this was a journey that started, I think that picture is from 2018. So this was a journey that started a long time ago already, and a lot has happened since. But at that point, I was weighing 101 kilos, and I wanted to get back in shape, get healthy, get fit, look a certain way, because that was important for me at the time. That was the beginning of a long journey and a new chapter in my understanding and my habits and skills and routines around health and fitness. But a lot happened since. That picture was from 2017, got married in 2018. Our first child was born shortly after that, the second one shortly after that. There was a lot of drama in my personal life, a lot of tension and stress that we needed to deal with throughout the years, and being physically fit actually helped me deal with a lot of the things that were causing stress and were causing distress in my life and my family's life. But it also showed me how hard it is to stay fit and healthy over the course of life happening to us. So when I say that it is simple but not easy, I really mean that the foundations of health and fitness are relatively quick and simple to be understood. And I think you already know the basics of that. If we talk about the basics of health, fitness, and longevity, we add a couple of more factors, but even those seem to be common knowledge and common sense. But it is the application of those things in life that makes it hard and not easy. That's what I mean by that. So how did I do it at the time? First of all, I got the personal training, right? I got the personal training and the commitment there. I had to show up 3 to 4 times a week to do the training, and already there was a lot of learning around the fitting in of training and health and fitness time into a very busy daily schedule. So what I learned there was not only that training was a part of a health and fitness routine, but also that fitting those 30 minutes, 60 minutes into my week 3 times a week was going to be a challenge. So learning how to prioritize, learning how to manage a schedule, learning how to find time, and also find the motivation and the energy and the will to actually go to the gym regardless of the time of day, early morning, late afternoon, or in the evening, was a big lesson for me in how to use my schedule, but also adapt my schedule to the goal that I have. But becoming very consistent in showing up for training and making that a cornerstone activity in my week made it so that I was at least working on my physical health and fitness. But there's more to health and fitness, right? There's the big three. There's sleep, there's food, and there's training. And training obviously is what you think you go to a personal training gym for. But then we started talking about nutrition, and they taught me a lot about food. They taught me a lot about the different types of foods that I was eating, and they really made me reflect on what I was eating on a daily and weekly basis. And you guessed it already because you've seen the picture. There was a lot of junk in my diet. There was a lot of takeaway, there was a lot of fast food, there was a lot of snacks, there was a lot of sugary drinks, there was a lot of alcohol, well, not a lot of abundance of, but there was sufficient alcohol on a regular basis, so at least weekly, right? And all of that compounded over time into a very unhealthy and unfit body. So on top of now showing up and training consistently 2-3 times a week, quite intensely, also under supervision, there was also a challenge in terms of what to do with food. So we needed to start to shop differently, and here you already get into the social dynamics of trying to get fit and healthy, because obviously me and my partner had slightly different expectations and ideas of what was going to be cooked and what was going to be put on the table. There's never been any objection to eating healthy, but the radical changes to the complete diet that I wanted to make was a negotiation between the two people living in the house and preparing breakfasts and dinners together, and also for the activities that we wanted to undertake on the weekends, because food is functional, but food is also social, right? But beyond that, there was also a challenge at work. We have a very good facility at work for food, for lunch and breakfast. It's very nutritious, it's generally healthy. But for me to take control of my food at the time, I actually started to meal prep for 5 days a week, and I would bring my own food to the office. And in our office culture, because the food is simply provided for us, that is generally not done. There were a lot of questions, a lot of jokes, a lot of remarks, a lot of interest. Also, I don't think it was poor will on part of my colleagues that were generally very supportive, but it was very strange for me to go through that extreme, because everyone was under the impression that the food that was being offered was generally healthy, and it was, but it was very hard for me to very specifically measure and understand the macronutrient profile of the meals that I was trying to eat, because at the time I thought that was very important. I was learning a lot about it, and I got so precise about it that I measured and weighed everything specifically in order to optimize my entire diet, and it worked. Now, having progressed further down the line, I still sometimes weigh, measure, and track my calories and my foods, because I think it's a useful exercise and a useful reflection and check-in. But I don't take it to the extreme that I took it at the time, because in general, I have a better grasp of what food is, what foods are good, nutritious, and healthy in the short term and the long term, and what types of foods I probably am better off avoiding in order to meet my health and fitness goals. But that was a transition as well. And then finally, we needed to look at the entire pattern of life. There were questions about stress, there were questions about sleep, there were questions about staying consistent. And even there, while I was training there, I noticed that I was very motivated also up to our wedding. I was incredibly motivated. I lost 5 kilos more than I maybe should have, so I dropped all the way down to 77.5 kilos from 101 kilos at the time. And after the wedding, there was a slight motivation dip right after we got married. I was still showing up, I was still working out, but I wasn't pushing myself as hard as I might have before. And it was really just, it was very hard for me to actually stay motivated to keep training. And they explained to me that, well, sometimes we just need to take breaks, but even after taking breaks, I just ran out of steam. But one of the reasons I realize now that I ran out of steam, it wasn't training fatigue as much as that it was that I was starving myself, basically. Because there would be yogurt only days, so to speak, where I would eat low-fat, high-protein yogurt, and I would try to stick to 1,200 calories. Now, as a man who requires anywhere between 21 and 2,800 calories, depending on how active I am throughout the day, you can imagine the detrimental effect that's going to have on my energy levels. So I was losing weight or staying skinny, but I was definitely not providing myself with the energy and nutrients to live an active and fulfilling and adventurous life. And I'm very happy that that balanced out over time. But there were lessons there. And there were a lot more lessons afterwards, because then we had children, and children are very demanding on our schedule. There's a lot of interrupted sleep. There's always something that needs to be done. You're constantly caring and nurturing and nursing someone else, the woman more so than the man, but you know, you're either helping your wife or work or tending and taking care of the child. And that had a huge impact on my schedule. And I noticed that there is this pattern also, that somewhere between November and January I tend to put on weight. It gets dark, I suffer a bit of the winter blues, I start to eat more, I tend to turn towards things like a gaming console and TV more than being active. And over the course of the last 8 or 9 years, I've realized that there's a pattern there that I am actively working to break, and there's certain strategies that I've put in place to break that. But back then I got caught up in this pattern. So interrupted sleep, taking care of a child, showing up for work, making sure the basics are all in place, but less and less focus on nutrition and on training. COVID hit, there were some challenges there, obviously, but what I did manage to do is to commit myself to taking a personal training class once a week, simply to force myself to get out of the house and to stay connected to the routine of working out and going to the gym. And I did this for about 2 years, between our first and second one being born. And that honestly really helped me stay on track in terms of the pattern of exercise. Because when I showed up for that the first time, I had been half-heartedly training for a while in this personal, because the personal training gym that I had been a part of had closed in the town where I was, and I needed to find a different place to train. And I realized how much I'd gotten out of shape. I thought I was in pretty good shape still, but a couple of exercises with this personal trainer showed me that there was a lot for me to gain again, to regain, but also to build towards. And we started building slowly but surely. But going through those severe pattern changes also showed me how important it is to have a good grasp of the basic concepts of how important sleep is. Sleep is very important, so making sure we prioritize getting 8 hours of sleep on a night. How important nutrition is for weight management. We can exercise as much as we want, and it's good for building muscle, building strength, building cardiovascular capacity, maintaining heart health and vascular health, working on our bone density, and our general ability to do things. But food is where the management of weight comes in. So when we talk about losing 20 kilos and keeping that off, right? I was 101 kilo, I'm around 85 kilos at the moment. keeping that weight off over time has a lot more to do with managing how much I eat and the types of foods that I'm eating than managing my activity levels. They're both related to health and fitness, but investing in food and nutrition is going to help me maintain my weight, and investing in activity and training is going to help me maintain my capacity and ability physically and mentally. And those are two things that we need to take together when we talk about health and fitness. So we need to talk about those 3 insights that I would like to share with you from having lost the 20 kilos and mainly kept it off, or having maintained a leaner body over time, is that it is about being consistent over an extended period of time, right? It's been 9 years, and I think it's going to be 50 more years of health, fitness, training, nutrition, and proper sleep to keep myself fit, active, and healthy for life. But being consistent is hard. It's not easy to change our schedules and our routines, but it is the most important part of being and staying fit and healthy. And that means that we need to look at consistency over the time horizon of 5, 10, 15, 20 years, not only during the week, not only during the day, but also over the year and over 5 years and 10 years, because we can be consistent for 1 year and then be inconsistent for another, and then we're just going to lose the health and fitness we've built up. It's about understanding the skill of nutrition and where that fits into the bigger picture of our health and fitness journey, and that nutrition is very much related to energy management and to weight management overall, right? It is probably the key lever we can pull to lose weight or to maintain weight, and to feed ourselves in a way that we enjoy it, that we take pleasure in preparing and eating the food, and that we actually have the energy to function and perform throughout the day. The third insight is that it is important to understand where exercise training falls in relation to health, fitness, and weight management. And that is that it helps us build muscle and lean mass. It does help us burn energy and energy stores and fat stores, but it is more related to our overall ability and not as much related to our ability to lose weight. We need to understand where training and activity falls and the impact it has on our general health and fitness. I don't see training as a tool to lose weight. I see training as a tool to maintain my physical ability, my strength, my conditioning, and it complements weight loss, but weight loss and weight maintenance is mainly driven through food. And having understood that, it's made it clear to me why I need to put such an emphasis also in my weekly routine on the foods that I bring into the house, the foods that I prepare, and the foods that I consume over time while being active and pursuing an adventurous and active lifestyle. So anyway, I hope that was useful and insightful. Maybe there's something in my journey for you. If you found this talk interesting, like I said before, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and check out my live streams where I live stream daily workouts. I talk about health, fitness, and longevity in my podcast, different topics every day, and we can connect there and say hi in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and I read all the comments that I get. Remember, friend, we're good just the way we are. We've got to love ourselves before we can move on. It's the person we are today that's going to get us to where we want to be tomorrow. So a bit of kindness is going to go a long way. And the only way to get anything done, friend, is by showing up and doing the work. So I'll see you in my next video.